we are back. It's been a long summer. I've missed you, but we are back and we are live, and it's September, and it's a whole new series of Benivo Bites and The View from the Top. And my gosh, it's good to see you all. So you know what to do, guys. Write in the conversation, write in the comments box. Let us know, join the conversation. Tell us who's out there. My good friend Melinda, who's backstage, will be posting them online. She's our producer. She'll be putting your comments up there. So let us know who you are, where you are, what's going on in your world. We've got an amazing show for you today. Hi there, Jack. Good to see you out there in Chicago. Hi, Mark from Dallas. We've got people coming in. We've got dozens of you coming in. Ray from Vancouver. People coming all over the world. Melissa from New York. My gosh, there's dozens and dozens of you coming in. So that's just great to see you. And today's show, I'm delighted to say that we are approved for HRCI and SHRM credits, and that's very kindly organized for us by our good friends at Rocket Mortgage, which is also great news, and we'll be releasing those at the end of the show. We are now approved for HRCI and for SHRM credits. Hi there, Taylor from Las Vegas. Joan, we're from all over the world. People are coming in, and we've got such an important subject today. We're going to be talking about the women behind Benivo's technology. We're going to be talking about women in leadership role in technology, and also we're going to be talking about how technology companies actually work, because a lot of you everybody will use technology. But I suspect a lot of you don't really know exactly how a technology company works. And we wanted to share how we work. We love being open and honest and transparent and just sharing how it is. So we've got a great show that's really going to sort of, open up the drawer and let you see inside about, how we work, how technology is developed, and in particular, the role of women in a technology company. And the reason I'm talking about that, about in particular women in technology, is that most technology companies, if you look at them, are about 70% male. It's quite a macho industry. I suppose engineering generally is, and this is just another form of engineering. But in our case, we are over 50% female leadership in our company, and we wanted to introduce you to the women who run our technology and maybe get a feeling about what's the difference between male leadership and female leadership, if anything, in technology. So that's the show we've got coming up later. And then next week, we've got The View from the Top is back. And we're talking about a really important subject. We're talking about sustainability. We're going to be talking environmental, social, governance. And I'm delighted to say we've got Jason Suto from BlackRock and Cheryl Craig from VMware, as well as Galia Peretz from Wycott, who are going to be joining me next week on The View from the Top. So a great, great show lined up. So what else have we got in this series of Benivo Bites and The View from the Top? Well, once again, later this year, we're going to be having the Top 100, and that is going to be back, and it's going to be bigger and better than ever. We've got some really exciting news. I won't tell you what yet, but nominations are going to open on October the 13th. I know we've only just started September. We're already thinking of October, and then we'll be releasing the results later on in the year. So that's one for your calendar, is that the Top 100 is coming back in a few weeks' time. We're also in a few weeks going to be announcing a whole new initiative called The Changemakers, which is a charitable initiative that we are launching. I'm not going to tell you about it now. That's one just to tease you a little bit about, but that's coming forward in a short while. So that's what we've got on the show coming forward. But as ever, one of these shows is not a show without an immigration update. And there's been so much going on in the world of immigration over the summer, and in particular, there's one story which is probably the story of the year that we all need to focus in on. And to talk about that, I'm really delighted and honoured as ever to have Julia Onslow Cole with us. So let's bring Julia onto stage. Julia, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Yes, lovely to see so many familiar names as well.
How was your summer?
Yes, been very nice, thank you. Yes, could have had better weather in the UK, but never mind.
Okay, well, great to have you back. And so tell me, Julia, I'd sort of hinted about it. There's one really, really important subject.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's been really absolutely dreadful, time people have been having and are having in Afghanistan. And I thought, we could just concentrate on my slot today, just talking about Afghanistan and in particular focusing on what people might be doing to help. And I think, next week we're going to have Breaking Barriers on, that are doing a lot of work with companies in this area. But I just
I should have said that, Julia. Thank you for reminding me. There's an amazing charity called Breaking Barriers. I don't know if you want to tell us a bit about it. And they're going to be on the show next week to tell us about some of the great work they've been doing.
Yes, so I'm a trustee of Breaking Barriers. The thing is that it's a charity which actually supports refugees, particularly in the UK, and that they work with companies so that they have work experience and the opportunity to, help them with their CVs and also to gain work, which is really tremendous. And they have connections with organisations over the world. So I think, next week will be really good because we'll hear from Matt, the CEO. So this week, I was just going to have a look at what's happening on immigration. And I do want to say thank you very, very much to Daniel Pierce, who's in our Washington office, and also Marius Tolinari, who's been working in Europe. And what I really wanted to focus in is what happens if you have people who are now in Afghanistan and they've kind of been left behind. And we're getting a lot of queries all the time on this. I mean, a number of companies are contacting us to say that they have employees who have people, relatives who are there in that situation, or maybe it's universities or NGOs. So there's a couple of real messages I want to give. And the first is, it's really important to probe to see what connections those people have. So, what country connections, and then when they have a connection to a particular country, then you probe a bit further. So I'm just going to quickly whiz over what the situation is if you have a connection to the US, because the vast majority of people who are leaving do have a US connection. And then I'm going to quickly say a couple of words about the UK, because that's the kind of second largest group, and then a little bit about Europe and the rest of the world. So in the US, if you've got someone that's now stuck in Afghanistan, you have to find out, are they connected to the US military, the US government, the US NGO, or a US media organization, or do they have, for example, a close family relative in the US? And depending on the answer to that, then you go down a separate pathway, which ultimately leads to resettlement in the US. So that's the first step, is to probe and find out which country, and then if it's the US, is it one of these pathways? Now, if it's the US and you've served with the military or the government for a minimum of 1 year, then you could be eligible for a special immigrant visa. That's an SIV. So this is an immigrant visa or a green card. And if it's less than 1 year, or your tie is to media or an NGO, then you may be eligible for a P2 referral. Now, a P2 referral isn't a visa. People think it is because it's got a letter in front of it, but actually it's a pathway. And when you come into the US on a P2 referral, then you apply for asylum. So those are the sort of two main categories. And also, do you have any close family members? And at the time of the evacuation, what was happening is that anybody who had any kind of route or any pathway, we were finding that we could actually get them on a plane. And say with the close family members, even if ordinarily you'd be 5 or 6 years away of getting a green card, that would be enough to get them taken out of Kabul. So, but what's happening in practice on the ground is that the US government are giving people humanitarian parole. Now, what that is, it's a sort of mechanism that the US government are using to kind of speed the process and really get the evacuation, or in the past, the evacuation from Kabul going. And we understand that's what they did in Saigon. So if you...
Humanitarian parole, that's the phrase.
Humanitarian parole. Now, if you're seeking, if you already have been airlifted out of Kabul, then what happened to you is that you were taken to a third country. We're seeing people were taken to Qatar, Albania, Kosovo, Uganda. Some people were taken to Spain. And now we're seeing those people trickle into the US. And when they come into the US, the idea is that, you know, they can then be adjudicated for the SIV or the P2. And the good thing is, of course, they're in the US, and after a while they get permission to work. The important thing to note is that if you're actually left behind now, the thing to do is go straight for the humanitarian parole. Don't worry too much about the pathway underneath. But the thing about humanitarian parole, if you're doing it from outside of, if you're doing it from outside the US, is you have to actually have some financial assistance. So there has to be some support. So that's an important thing to note. But one thing that Daniel said, it's really important to tell everybody, and we've been advising a lot of NGOs and employers about this, is that when someone reaches the US and they're inside a military base and their application for the for asylum is being processed, then at that point, you have to be very careful about giving them any financial aid, because it can disqualify them from other benefits that they might have. So the big learning is to try and wait and coordinate with the refugee coordinator, so you don't actually prejudice them by cutting off finances that they might be getting from the US government. So obviously things are very, very tense, but you know, those are the sort of two big takeaways that I can really give you. And the other thing is that if you're applying from outside and you're applying for this humanitarian parole and you do have a financial sponsor, it doesn't even matter if you don't have a passport. You can actually be issued with a travel document to get you to the US. Now, turning to the UK, which is the second biggest, largest group of people.
If I could just ask, you're finding that, you know, we've talked about NGOs, but presumably clients of yours and clients and employers of all of ours in the industry, they may well have employees who've got relatives who are
exactly. Yeah, we're having a lot of queries from clients who have employees who have relatives there who've worked for the US military or the UK or whatever, and also we are actually coming across businesses that actually had people there.
Okay, and you're going to talk about Europe.
Yes, so Europe. So looking at the UK, there's this scheme called the ARAP scheme. And those are for people who supported British efforts. It doesn't matter how junior you were, it doesn't matter how long you were employed. If your life is in danger, you can apply under this scheme. And what we're finding is that the people who did not manage to get onto flights, they are now crossing the desert to Pakistan and Iran. And I don't have many more details of that, but they are moving. And the good news is that you can apply from outside, from outside the UK. And the fantastic news that we heard overnight is that the government are granting these people indefinite rights to live in the UK, and they're giving them full access to support. So that's really, really positive. In addition to that, there's a...
They've just got to physically get out first, though, haven't they?
Yes, yes. And then in addition to that, there's a resettlement scheme, which the Home Secretary announced, but it isn't up and running yet. And that's for 20,000 people, 5,000 in the first year. Now, also there's separate schemes that Australia and Canada are running. And then turning to the EU, there's been a lot of discussion in the EU, and Marius Tolinari's been helping me. He's been monitoring those discussions very, very closely. And it's very... a tense situation in the EU because of the sort of refugee crisis in 2015, and there's a lot of divergence of opinion with the different EU countries. So Austria are adopting a very strict conservative approach. I think all member states are generally agreed that those people who work for European government should qualify to enter the EU. Luxembourg wants to include other people at risk, like judges and journalists, but other countries don't. And so there's very little clarity. There's a lot of discussion about whether they should support, the EU should support other countries like Turkey to take refugees and hold them in camps, but already Turkey and Iran, they already have a lot of refugees in their country, but the EU have agreed to huge humanitarian aid. So the situation is very, very much developing, but I know the situation is very difficult for everybody, but hopefully that's a couple of sort of good pointers.
Okay, thank you so much, Julie. I mean, it's such an awful situation that people are finding themselves in. I know that that you were doing a lot of pro bono work there, as well as helping clients out there. So all kudos to you and your colleagues for everything that you're doing. And if anybody's got any questions on getting people out of Afghanistan, then I'm sure Julia will be very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I mean, there's a lot of organizations, huge number of really great organizations as well that we're all helping. And, please don't hesitate to give your message to me on LinkedIn, and I will make sure, someone gets back to you. But
okay, so thank you, Julia. So now what I want you to do out there in LinkedIn world, on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching us, is how it works, although you might be out of practice because we've been off air for a few weeks. But hit the applause button, hit the like button, hit the heart button, say thank you to Julia for her update, and let's bring on the women behind Benivo Technology. I'm delighted that we've got Natalie and Gohar with us. So hit those buttons, everybody, and let's talk technology. Hey, Gohar, you're with us. Natalie, and I didn't introduce you, but everybody knows Nitsan. Nitsan's here too. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to have you on the show. How are you feeling? Not nervous? All for a good conversation?
Absolutely. Hi, Brian. Nice to see you.
Hello. Yeah, very excited.
And the audience is just going mad. I'm seeing all the applause and the hearts, and there's so much I want to talk about today, because I must admit, although here I sit as a strategy director in a tech company, but I'm not a great techie, and you guys use language that I don't even understand. I couldn't tell what a UX or a Scrum Master or a Sprint or QA or what all these things are. I've got no idea what they all are, and there's so much I want to ask. I expect there's lots that the audience want to ask, and we're really going to open up the curtain and find out a little bit about how it works. I know, Gohar, you are head of development. I'm not really sure what head of development, actually I am, but we're going to find out what head of development does. Natalie, I know you're head of product, and we're going to be talking about what product and how does product compare to development. But actually, the first subject I want to get onto is Gohar. Let's start with you. You are the first person on Benivo Bites we've had on the show from Armenia. So, let's just find out a little bit about Armenia. I suspect in the audience, I know we've got some people from Benivo in Armenia in the audience, but putting that aside, how many people out there have actually been to Armenia? So, let us tell us all about it. Okay. So I'm guilty, although I know I've had a standing invite. I just haven't got out there yet. But Natalie and Nitsan, you have, and obviously Gohar, we know you have. But when we saw that opening video, we saw that lovely picture of Yerevan in there, and at the back of it there was a big snow-capped mountain. So what's that? Tell us what, because that's a really famous mountain, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So help me out here, Gohar. I'm asking for the name of the mountain.
It is Ararat. I suppose some people will know about it because it's really a historical mountain, Ararat, and related to the Christianity, related to the religion. So many people will know about it, I think.
Yeah. So Mount Ararat is. So people are saying they've been. Mount Ararat, of course, is where Noah's Ark is meant to have landed in the Bible. But here's a fun fact, and if you know I know you know the answer, Gohar, so don't give it away. This is one for the audience, okay? Here's a fun. We haven't had a fun fact for a while, so let's have a quick fun fact. Okay, what was Armenia the first country in the world to do? And we're talking about a long time ago here. We're talking about AD 301. What did Armenia first do in the world that makes Armenia world famous? So if people want to have a guess about that, we'll see what comments are coming in. So what other comments are we getting coming in here about Armenia? Armenia is beautiful, and we've got that. What's that? One of the best chocolate companies in Armenia. I don't know about that. So what were they first company to do? Omar says wine. They were the first country in the world. Wine. Shoes. You're both wrong. You're both wrong. Any other guesses? What did Armenia do first in the world? And this is one of those facts that once you know it, you will not forget it, and you will be able to share it with your friends because it is a really important fact. It's one of those things to know. The first people to build a boat. Well, that's a good guess given the ark. Built the first church. You're getting closer and closer. Yes, and Robert has got it. So the answer is Armenia was the first country in the world to adopt Christianity as its state religion. So, I mean, that is a really, really huge fact. So fascinating about that. So anyway, so that's just said a little bit about Armenia, and it's as people have said, it's a really beautiful country, isn't it, Gohar?
Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit hard for me to judge, but taking into consideration comments I see now, other people that aren't from Armenia are also liking it. So I would say that Armenia is really a nice country and beautiful.
Okay. And Nitsan, I mean, we've got, Benivo has a development team in Armenia. I mean, that's where all our we've got lots of bright people around the world, but we've got loads of bright people in Armenia who are developing in all our technology. Now, I've got to ask you the obvious question: why Armenia? Why did we choose Armenia as a place to develop? And maybe just tell us a bit about what we do in Armenia, Nitsan and Gohar.
Yeah, so I'll start and I'll let Gohar continue. First, we're extremely proud that every line of code in Benivo is written in Armenia. So it's not that we just have a satellite office and a few people there. This is the core of our technology build, and something that we are extremely proud of. And you asked me why Armenia, and most people assume it's because I have some personal background there, or I'm Armenian, and unfortunately I'm not. So that's not the answer. Although my last name could have been almost Armenian, but with one more AN it would have been. But more seriously, how we got into that. So about 6 years ago, we raised a round of funding for Benivo. Actually, was there. Trading under a different name, and we knew that we want to invest more in our technology, build a technology team, a proper technology team that we did not have then, and we were looking at a few locations to do that. London, where the company was based, there was not an option due to the lack of talent. We were assessing a few locations, 4 countries actually. I've met 30 developers in each of those 4 countries to make that decision, and also got in touch with a venture capital firm called Granatus Ventures, which is an Armenian venture capital firm who actually raised the initial idea of going into Armenia and later became one of the investors and shareholders in Benivo. And what happened next is I started to meet people in Armenia, and I found a very rare combination of both very high talent and people who definitely understand technology, know technology, but also a very good culture fit, right? So it's not enough to just have great engineers. In order to build a product company where the focus is on the business, you need the people to also understand the business. And that was a rare combination that we found actually there. And actually one of the first people I've talked with was Gohar. And back then we had a technology advisor who helped me assess talent, and he interviewed Gohar, and after that he came back to me and he said, Nitzan, if half of what she says is true, you should hire her now. Right? So based on that advice, we did hire. She became our first employee there, and we said, let's try it out. But actually he was wrong. It wasn't even half, it was double of what you said in that initial interview that ended up to be the reality. And I think Gohar is a great example to the kind of talent we have there. We later went and recruited Shushan Petrosyan, who was the second person in Armenia, and both are still working with us now more than 5 years after actually not working, but they are the leaders or some of the key leaders in our technology team. So extremely proud to be able to grow that team from what was then one person with Gohar to now reaching almost 50 people team in our development team.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what people do and how it all, how this all comes together. And how you got into the industry. So Gohar, you're head of development, and Natalie, you're head of product. So I don't know what those terms mean. Well, I'm going to pretend I don't know what they mean. So just talk me through. I mean, first, and what are the size of your teams? I mean, Gohar, what's the size of your team, and what do you do?
Okay, yeah, it is a little bit hard to imagine when you are out of the industry and you don't work there directly. I'm leading development team, and the size of the team is almost 50 people in Armenia, the tech team.
50.
And when we're speaking about tech teams, when we're speaking about development teams, usually people imagine software developers. And that's true, because the main work is being done, all the technology that is built by developers. But in reality, there are a lot of affiliative or related roles, and in tech, in the software development, and in our company as well, that are helping us a lot and are making all the magic that is happening in behind. So, for example, there's Scrum Master role, there's a QA or Quality Assurance Engineer role, the same for Quality Assurance Automation, and similar roles that people don't know usually.
Okay, let's get into those. We'll get onto those in a moment. So we've got those roles. I do want to get into them, but I'm just trying to get the link between development side and the content side, the product side. So tell us a bit about your role and how that, what you do and how that interacts. I'm just trying to get my head around exactly how we develop something.
Yeah, of course.
Actually, yeah, okay, Natalie, go
ahead. So as head of product, I take the company objectives and manage the product roadmap. I lead a team of 4 people and myself, so there's 5 of us in total, made up of product managers and UX designers. And we're basically the interface between the business and the development side. So it's really important that we take the business needs and we're able to explain to the development team what is needed, which will help us then develop the features going forward.
Okay, so there's 3 sides to this then. There's the business,
yeah.
There's the product, and there's the development. So Nitsan, maybe can you give us an example of something, and then we can talk about how it actually gets developed? I mean, let's try and get down to, make this real and tangible for everybody to understand how something actually gets developed in a tech company.
Yeah, so let's talk about one of the hottest trends now in our industry in mobility, which is personalization and flexibility, right? How can we deliver more flexibility? That was one of the things that came out of the pandemic. Employees expect more flexibility. And what we've seen coming out of that is companies going into two directions. One is offering lump sum, and the other is offering a core flex, using points in order to employee to choose. And those are kind of the needs that came to us in Benivo. So we are seeing more and more corporates who want to do offer a lump sum solution, which for this discussion we already have. But now we realize we also need to deliver on the need of core flex, and that means how to manage that, how to manage the complexity there, as well as how to help employees make decisions between those flexible options. And at that stage, the conversation would go to Natalie, right? So she will get that business need, and that will be moving into product. So over to you.
Great, thank you. So we'll take that business need, and there will be a product owner that will be assigned that particular feature or that need. And it's really important for us to understand what the problem is that we're trying to solve. How is it that this feature is going to add value, and what are the problems that clients are experiencing at that point? Every feature has a business owner, so somebody in the company that really understands the problem that we're trying to solve. And with that, we will be writing something called a high-level requirement document. So a really detailed document understanding what the current situation is in the market, what the feature is going to do, what our success metrics look like, from a security perspective, anything that we need to cover there. And then we will write that out and interface with stakeholders.
And how long will that document be typically?
A document like that might be 20 pages or so. So it'll be really, really detailed. And in that, we will have mock-ups from a UX and a UI perspective to make sure that it's covering all the areas. We'll also cover a lot of use cases to make sure that we are understanding what clients need. So we'll take what that whole feature looks like, and then we will probably break that into smaller chunks, which is called an MVP, which stands for a minimum viable product. So basically, what version of this product is enough, has enough feature sets to be able to be usable for the customer, to meet use cases, and to gather feedback for future iterations. Once that's been signed off, we then interface with tech, especially with Gohar and some of the other senior tech members, to understand what the business needs are and what this feature needs to do.
Okay, so basically, Nitsan and team have come up with the idea that we've got to do something for, say, lump sum or core flex. Yeah. You then turn that into a document that sets out exactly what we want in some level of detail. And presumably you're going backwards and forwards with Nitsan and the team and me to work out exactly what it should look like. You then throw that over to Gohar and say, this is what we want. Can you do it? And how long is it going to take to do? And what's it going to cost? Presumably that's sort of the conversation. Is that right?
Yeah, that's how it goes. Sorry, Gohar, you go.
So
yeah,
what
that's
do you
absolutely
right. when you get this document from Natalie?
It is something, I'm getting a lot of such documents from Natalie because as it is a single example, we are having very many features on the pipeline. And once getting the document from Natalie, I'm reading and thinking on the technical implementation because there are two questions to cover. How much it will cost us by the time and complexity, and which of the teams it will take. Because we have several development teams, small teams, that are doing particular things, particular work, more specific to some feature or some area of the platform. And this is with what I'm coming back to Natalie, to very often to discuss the compromises, because we always want to deliver the features as fast as possible. And then the compromises for MVP are coming. and we are discussing estimation, if needed, cutting down or changing some requirements with Natalie. If needed, Natalie is going back to the business to discuss these things. And then I decide which team will take this and the technical direction of implementation. So it is quick enough to meet the business needs, but also good enough technically so that we stay able and we stay scalable.
And how quickly can this be done? I mean, from the time when, Nitsan sort of has scratched his head and said, yes, we need to develop a new feature, to going through to Natalie, to going through to Gohar, to coming back to being something that can actually be shown to a client and is workable. What's a timescale? What are we talking about here?
So by the time I've written my document, we want to have it to Gohar at least 30 days before the sprint starts, so that we can really get an understanding of technically what's possible, what the feature will do, making sure that it meets all the use cases from my side, any sort of backwards and forwards with the business that needs to happen. And then Gohar will take that away and talk to her team, as she said, about what can happen when. And then when it goes through into a sprint and it's committed, then our sprint cycle is normally 1 month long. So at the end of the 1 month, we will release the feature.
Okay, now you've used a term that is very common in the tech industry, but may not be that common outside. I'll ask the audience if they know what a sprint is, apart from running to catch the train or the last whatever bus or something. So what is a sprint in tech terms? Natalie,
Natalie.
Gohar. Oh,
okay.
Sorry. Gohar, you go.
Okay, sprint is a period of time or iteration that allows us, tech team, to deliver a functional, valuable product to the client. So this is a defined time period that the companies can decide for themselves, which is optimal for them, starting from 1 week to it can take to 4 weeks. But it is a defined time period after which tech team or development team, along with product team, is giving valuable, functional product to the client.
Yeah.
That can be used.
And with 3 development teams, we're normally able to deliver 3 large features and some small features and some bugs as well per month.
Okay, so this is all what people talk about when they talk about agile development, don't they? This is because you don't. I always thought that, historically, before I sort of met Benivo, I always thought that with technology, things were developed and put in, we'll develop this in 6 months' time, 12 months' time. But you don't plan ahead more than a quarter, do you? I mean, everything is done on incredibly lean times. Tell me a bit about agile development and how that all works.
Okay, I will. Brian, you are very right. Before the agile, back to around 20 years ago, the full development cycle and the delivery was taking to 6 months, even could take year or years. And during this period, all the processes were taking one after another with several cycles, and it could take very long time. And by the time of delivering the software, it was very often even not needed because it was taking really long. And what is giving agile development to us, regardless of its particular methodology, is being able to take benefits from the software from the beginning, being able to provide a valuable functional product to the client that can use, that can review and give a feedback. And because of this ability to see what they get, or very often clients are able to understand much better what they want and what they need in very early stages. That is, I think, the key concept and key benefit from Agile that I think is making it success. And it's something that is applicable not only to software development, but almost any industry where the management processes take place.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I was just going to say that obviously being agile means that we're able to build fast and we're able to get things out to clients a lot quicker, which then means we're able to get that feedback a lot sooner and then iterate. I mean, also on the other side, it allows us to fail fast. So if we put something out there that's not quite right, then we can iterate quickly and then bring value to our clients as soon as possible.
Okay, so the aim is to fail fast. I mean, obviously the aim is not to fail, but if you're going to fail fast, so you know exactly what you're doing and you don't waste time and effort and money developing something that isn't going to work. So Nitsan, can you give me some examples of how we've done that in practice, of where, you know, you've seen some agile development and maybe the speed to market that we've been able to develop that maybe a conventional company couldn't do?
Yeah, I think, if we stick to that core flex example and we look into what was happening. So you were saying first, if the idea comes from me, normally it doesn't. It comes from the customer, right? From the business who talk with us, share it with us, and then we just decide to build it. Our role is quite simple. We are very lucky to work with very smart corporates who come up with most ideas. And when they come up with those, in that example, right, we were able to deliver what we called an MVP, so a minimal viable product. MVP stand for. We were able to do that without almost any coding, right? So without doing any development, to deliver something very, very basic that can deliver on the core needs based on things we built before, and we did it. Is that the optimal solution? Obviously not. But it allows us to move within days and introduce a solution very, very quickly, and then start to get that feedback that allows us then to start and invest more. And then we released what we call V1 version, the first version, and just now released the second version of this core flex, where it's already like nice and beautiful and has all the things we wanted to do, but now based on feedback from real usage. Right? Whether it's not anymore just what we think and what we estimate, because it's very tough to guess what users actually need and what customers really want. It's much better to put something in front of them, iterate with that, learn, analyze the data, and do that. So that's kind of how this is our normal process. We all the time have things that are in an MVP stage or even a minimal MVP, then they are at V1, and then there are things that we've already done many times, and now we've scaled and built the proper solutions, and sometimes had to even bin the entire code that was written for the MVP, right? So in a way you can think that's a waste, right? Because now all that work that was done in the past now going to the bin, and everything needs to be refactored. But actually that's the right way that's the most efficient way to manage resources. Okay,
and there's lots of terms out there that we've touched on before. Now, I'll ask the audience, who knows them, So, Scrum Masters, UX designers, QA automation. You see these terms when you're sort of opening magazines sometimes, and you'll see a term like that. I used in one of the LinkedIn posts. I used the term a Scrum Master, and the comment I got back from somebody was, "Isn't that something in rugby?" Which, funnily enough, is actually where the term came from. But what are they? I mean, in words of one syllable that non-tech people could understand, so they can understand how a tech company actually works. What is a Scrum Master?
I will try to explain it, Brian. Hi.
Yeah, hi. I think I lost you. Natalie, could you maybe take this one until Gohar comes back?
What, the Scrum Master or the UX design, the design side?
Yeah.
So the Scrum Master, their role is to understand what the business needs are from my perspective, and it's to manage the sprint. So they will work with the tech leads to understand what each of the items that build up the feature are related to and who's going to work on it. And with the tech leads, they'll work out also how long each item is going to take and what is able to be fitted in and released within a sprint.
Okay, and how does somebody become a Scrum Master?
Oh, that's a question for Gohar.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll have Gohar back in a minute. I think we've lost her feed.
In a way, you can look at that as a project manager, right? So you will need to have very strong project management skills. You need to like tech, but you don't need to be a developer. So a Scrum Master is not, sometimes it is, depends on the way you implement a Scrum and Agile. And there are, we can have 3 sessions only about what is Scrum management. But in the way we implemented that doesn't require the Scrum Master to be a developer. It's actually someone who is supporting the development team and making them more efficient and be able to produce more.
So on a day-to-day basis, I would interface with the Scrum Master predominantly. So they would be coming to us and saying, this particular feature or these particular items are going well, or there's a blocker, you need to help us unblock it. We have questions about it. So that's the person that I would be interfacing most with.
Okay, and we've got Gohar back. Well, welcome back, Gohar.
Yeah, thank you. Always, there is no chance that it will go without internet interruption.
So we were talking about Scrum Masters, but let's move on. What about a UX designer? What is a UX designer, and what is QA automation?
Okay, so just from a UX designer perspective, it's a person that works on my team. And they create user interfaces and experiences for all platforms. So she'll design for mobile first, and then tablet, and then the web. And it's her responsibility to make sure that everything that she designs is visually appealing, functional, very easy to use, and obviously stays true to the Benivo brand identity.
So UX stands for user experience.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then QA automation, and that's a new one for me.
So the QA stands for quality assurance. So quality assurance specialist is responsible for the quality and for the product quality and meeting the requirements that initially meant to be. And what is the automation stands for is that currently in this area of era of technology, we can't do everything manually. It is not scalable, and we can't test everything manually in technology and in software development, and check everything and make sure that all the content are there, all the functionality works according to requirements manually. So the automation came to there. So quality assurance automation specialists are responsible for making, for automating and writing code like developers, for checking everything that people do, automating manual work from humans so that it is scalable and quality is there.
Okay, I want to move on to the subject of women in technology, and I think at that point, actually, I'm just going to say goodbye to you for a bit, Nitzan, and we'll bring you back. But let's just focus in on our women in leadership roles. And Natalie, Gohar, and I know obviously there's many more. We're over 50% female at Benivo. What do you think makes Benivo different by having a majority of female lead in technology, given that technology is traditionally so masculine and macho? I mean, where do you see that? What do you see that being a difference in reality?
I think it's coming from the business needs and from the company priorities from the beginning. So as you mentioned earlier, Brian, there is almost half women, or maybe more than half of Benivo employees are women, and there are lots of women leaders here in our company. And there is a particular thing that, in my opinion, making women in technology and in leadership different from men, and that allows to take benefits from that. And that is the multitasking. Because especially when we have started as a startup, there is a limit in everything. Limit in resources, limit in time, and multitasking is something that is really needed to cover all the company needs. We have started in that way. When I have joined, and a couple of employees have joined. Few of them were women and started to be promoted to the leadership. We have been doing everything, almost everything, starting from technical decisions, technical implementations, people management, and even covering HR when we didn't have it. So it is something I think that we're giving us the ability, because male are giving perfect results and are very goal oriented. They are being focused on the goal and are implementing them. But doing these shifts from one task to the other, from one kind of work to the other, is harder for them. So this diversity and the ability to have both goal-oriented specialists that are implementing the needs, and people or female leaders that will focus everything, taking a look at big picture and coordinating all this work, gives this agility that we have grown so fast from the 4 or 5 people to the 50 people, and have made a good industry standards now, I think.
Yeah. And when you were studying, because you studied computer science at university, that's how you got into development. I mean, was the course at your university predominantly male, or was there a large number of women?
No, it was predominantly men in our university, and it's coming from the history. When I'm looking back, like past 70 or 50 years, for example, my mom was studying computer science, and the situation was similar. There were most percentage of male in the industry of engineering, and software development is kind of engineering, so it is more stereotypical for men to be engineers and to take natural sciences rather than for women.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Because HR is stereotypically a female-dominated profession, but technology is male-dominated. So you end up with a situation where you might have a bunch of men selling technology to a bunch of women. Whereas actually what we've got is a much more female-dominated led company. I mean, Natalie, from your perspective, I mean, how did you get into this industry, and was it very male-dominated when you started?
Well, I did a degree in biochemistry, so not engineering, but a science background. And I started in a maths educational company. So it was about taking primary school maths learning objectives, breaking those down into bite-sized objectives, and then delivering on the value of that objective. So it was very important to be very clear on what the value was of each objective. And I worked with animators and developers to deliver on this. So not the same industry at all, but I guess the skills were the same, of being able to manage projects very closely, prioritizing things. And then I got promoted my way up in terms of managing bigger projects or products and people. And so I joined Benivo with that experience and that background.
Okay. And what differences have you seen from being in a male-dominated industry to a female-led company?
I don't know. I mean, I do agree with Gohar in what she was saying in terms of being able to prioritize, being able to multitask and juggle a lot of priorities. It's definitely not for everybody. It's quite complicated. And that's, you know, when we're interviewing people, we do stress that this role and this type of environment does not suit everybody. Some people really like clear objectives and they go down a path and then, you know, they tie it up that way. But for us, we've got, you know, I don't know if you've heard of the term firefighting. You know, that does happen where, you know, you think you're going down a particular path and something happens. You know, there's a very critical need that comes from a client, something urgent that needs to be changed. And we have to act on our feet very fast. We have to make those changes quickly. And we need, while not derailing other projects that we're also working on. I don't know if that answers your question necessarily, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it does. I'm going to bring Nitsan just back into the conversation now. I mean, Nitsan, I mean, you know, you're working with this amazing team of people. I mean, and we've talked about development. We've talked about product, but there's content as well. I don't know whether we just sort of need to round it off by talking a bit about content, Nitsan.
Yeah, so there are, as a product company, right, for the delivery of a product, there is a lot of areas that needs to be supported. As you said, content, what's inside the platform, implementations, which is customizing every platform to the platform needs, support team that works with the people who use the platform, whether it's the employees or the corporate. So there is a whole area, a whole list of areas that are all making that product actually what it is, and just wanted to use that opportunity to highlight, yes, we have fantastic role models here with Natalie and Gohar on this show, but many more in Benivo, and many more people who've been working amazingly during the last now almost 18 months of the pandemic to deliver so much innovation and bring so many new things into the market. And I think the core thing that made them do that is that collaboration, that feeling of collaboration that we have between the team member. People care about each other, about each other's jobs and about each other's success. And for me, it's been an amazing opportunity to be part of this journey with these people. So I'll say from here to everyone, thank you.
Okay, and let me bring Julia back into the conversation. So, Julia, we're coming towards the end of the show, but it's been great having you on. You're back next week, and you're going to be talking to us about developments around the world. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll do a little global update next week.
Okay, lovely. And it's been an amazing show. And next week we've got an amazing charity on the show as well. Breaking barriers that you've talked to us about, and we're going to be talking about sustainability, we're going to be talking about governance, we're going to be talking about environment, we're going to be talking about the whole sort of ESG agenda. So we've got an amazing show. I mean, it's been absolutely fascinating and I'm listening as an insider, but hearing how a technology company develops technology, because I think to many people in the industry, technology is something that's a bit of a black box, that that people get given or sold technology and that's it. And they don't understand actually all the work that goes into developing it. And we've talked about some of these job titles and some of these roles that people have, development, product, Scrum Masters, QA automation, UX experience, software developers, which is probably the core to everything. If you've got any questions out there in the audience, you want to find out more about how a technology company works, then please do feel free to contact us. We'd love to hear your views. We will, of course, be back again this time next week. So it'd be great to hear you again. As I said, we've got a great show. We've got the View from the Top back next week. We've got loads of exciting things coming up. The View from the Top 100 is coming up again. We've got the Change Makers to launch. Loads of exciting stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks. We hope you've all enjoyed the show. All that really remains is for me to thank all our audience for being with us today. We really appreciate the fact that you give us your time to hear us and to join in and the comments you make. And also, and especially, thank you to everybody, to Gohar, to Natalie, to Julia, to Nitsan, and indeed behind the scenes to Melinda. Thank you all for helping make this show possible. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you all this time next week. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.